Ninjago is a show that has a different array of enemies that the ninja face every single season, and a lot of them have very different kind of scales in terms of their power. But it does call into question which of the armies did give the ninja the toughest time, and also which ones didn't really. And that has led me to this video where I've decided to take every single army and rank them based on these factors. And please let me know if you guys agree or disagree with the picks that I have done today. I'll explain what my basis was for all of them and how I'm basing them in general as well. But yes, this is going to be a rank of every single Ninjago army up until the point of Season 2 Part 2, because we haven't really seen the Forbidden Five in action, and we haven't seen the Dragonian Warriors either. So that's why they're not on this list. And if I have missed anyone, I don't believe I have, please let me know, because then I will let you know basically in the comments where they lie. But yeah, what's the criteria? Well, simply put, every single army, I'm basing them on the idea that we've got the core 6 ninja fighting them with their elemental power, nothing overly special, just the ninja are kind of like their base form. You know, if they woke up and they needed to fight the army, this is how well they'd essentially do. So that's basically the criteria. And then as for the armies themselves, well, the armies, the generals are also a factor, but I'm thinking of like the bulk army in, generally speaking, and it does include their standard weapons, does include their vehicles, and it does also include if they get any sort of upgrade, spoiler. But yeah, put it that way. That's basically what I base this off of. But let me know if you agree or disagree. Also, put in the comments what your guys' lists are. But yeah, let's get into it. As for the 21st spot in last place, I contemplated not even having them in here, because, well, it kind of is no argument that they are the least powerful. And that's the thugs that we see pop up a couple times during the Wild Brain era. We see them with Ronin, we see them with Misdemeanor, we see them with a couple of different people, but they're just guys. They have baseball bats, no real hassle for the ninja whatsoever. Wouldn't even need to draw a sword or an elemental power to really beat them. But yeah, bit brief, but the thugs are 21. And as for number 20 though, this is the first one, and in my opinion, the weakest army. And that is actually going to be the Ice Warriors from Season 11. Because while the Ice Emperor is a very powerful foe, he kind of just sits up in his seat whenever he was around. But the thing is that the Ice Warriors were able to be taken out with just regular weapons. The ninja didn't really need any sort of direct counter to them. They just needed to kind of break them. So it was one of those things where they don't really require anything special. They never really overwhelm the ninja at all. There's the one scene where Lloyd gets surrounded by them, but that's really about it. They kind of needed a reason to get Lloyd into the room with the Ice Emperor, to be honest. But yeah, I consider them the least powerful army, very easily. But yeah, number 20. Number 19 is going to be the other Season 11 Warriors, and that's the Pyro Vipers. And in similar vein, didn't really face that well against the ninja. Didn't really require much anything special. They could have done the whole thing where Nia was the one who was going to be able to defeat them with water, but every single ninja didn't really have a problem defeating the Pyro Vipers. I know Kai did have a moment of issue. That's when he lost his power, but again, my criteria is based off of all the ninja having all of their elemental abilities. So it's one of those things where the only time they were presented with any sort of strength was in fact when Kai had no power. And that's not really a factor here. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, But yeah, Pyro Vipers, number 19. Number 18 is going to be going to the Serpentine. And I honestly contemplated putting them a little bit higher. But the thing is that they're kind of just more jokey. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that in the regard of, well, they kind of just didn't really face up all too well. They were the ninjas' kind of starting army. I know the skeletons exist, but like when the ninja were fully ninja, you know what I mean? It was one of those things where they were the first ones that really stood up a test, and I think a modern day ninja would be able to defeat the Serpentine extremely easily. So it's one of those things where it was another simple instance of the ninja obviously had their moments. They had their moments with all of these armies, but the thing is that these were the ones, in my opinion, that just simply didn't have as much of an issue. But yeah, the Serpentine are number 18. Number 17 is going to the Skulkin, and well, in similar vein, modern day ninja, they don't really have any sort of issue with the Skulkin. The thing is that if this is where we're going to start considering vehicles and weapons and all that, the Skulkin have a fairly impressive arsenal, honestly. They have a bunch of interesting vehicles, they have a bunch of interesting bikes, everything like that. They honestly did give the ninja a bit of a run for their money, and Samukai in of himself is a very powerful general. But the thing is that, well, apart from that, they didn't really have anything else. Even when the ninja were very first learning out, they were barely ninja at this point, they still did stand a chance against the Skull King. And the thing is that it basically only really took spin jitsu to counter them. So it was one of those things where current form ninja would just not really have much of an issue. I mean, look at Day of the Departed. Jay, lightning power, just immediately zapped away all of the Skull King. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, is there any sort of issue with trying to defeat them? Not really. But yeah, the Skull King, number 17. Number 16, I think this is where we're going to start getting a little bit controversial. Because number 16, I did put the Sky Pirates. And this is mostly down to the fact that the Sky Pirates in of themselves are very easy to defeat. What brings them up a little higher is, of course, Nodicon. But of course, Nodicon is not always going to be there to counter. And the generals were quite fierce as well. Dog Shank was pretty good. Flintlock when he could shoot. Doubloon is a fantastic fighter. But the thing is that even though the generals are good, it's just a case of they didn't really have much else going for them. That's the issue. But yeah, honestly, still very formidable. The Sky Pirates, you wouldn't really want to face them. So one of those ones where they're fierce, but yeah, it's mainly the generals. But yeah, number 16. Number 15 is going to go to the Moray Guards. I mean, of course, they weren't really enemies for long, but in similar vein, they were serpentine, but they were a little more fierce. They were able to give the ninja a little more run for their money, and that was mainly down to the weapons, and more specifically when they were in the sea. They had a chance, and they did successfully take over Ninjago for a time. Obviously, that required Wojira, but at the same time, they still accomplished this feat. I'm not going to deny that. This is officially the point in time where we're looking at the armies that did give the ninja more of a run for their money in different ways. But yeah, the Moray Guards were fairly fierce. They're probably the best of the Serpentine. Oh no, they're not. There's the Vermilion. Yeah, they're coming up. But yeah, well, the Moray, fairly solid, put it that way. Number 14 is gonna go to the Island Keepers, and I really consider them putting them lower because I considered them for a while. I think the ninja have a fairly easy way of taking care of them, but they did successfully capture the ninja. Let's put it that way. They did give them a very serious run for their money. There was plenty of instances where they could have very easily have killed them. Even in the scene where they officially become friends, it was one of those things where the keepers probably did have the advantage over the ninja. So I have to give them credit where it's due. And they also did have the lightning powers of Rojira given to them. So they very much had abilities behind them. It was one of those instances where if they used it properly, they probably would have given the ninja a proper run for their money. But yeah, I can't deny that the keepers definitely had their power about them. So yeah, number 14. Number 13, again, this might be a bit more of a controversial one, but 13 is actually going to the Hunters from Season 9. And this is mainly down to their vehicles, their weaponry, and also they did have some fairly fierce people, because they captured the ninja multiple times, they did multiple instances of taking down dragons, they've killed dragons, they have proven that they are very fierce. Obviously, like I said, comes down to vehicles and weaponry, but that is a part of this list. If you don't consider that, they're at the bottom. But yeah, they have a lot of different things that make them very fierce, honestly, and even in the use of elemental power, I mean, they had the Dragon Blade for a very long time, so they had a counter to elemental ability. So it's one of those things where, with everything considered and the fact they were able to take down dragons, and also, yeah, the ninja multiple times, I can't deny the fact that they are where they're meant to be. But again, number 13, very happy with it, but who's right above them, you may not like. Because number 12, I did give it to the Sons of Garmadon. Now, hear me out, please. Right? The Sons of Garmadon, the generals had the Oni masks. Yeah, and a resurrected Garmadon. It's not a case of they didn't have much going on, but I mean, they were capturing elemental masters, they took over Ninjago, they did all of this. The Oni Titan is technically one of their weapons. They had a lot going for them. I know a lot of people who think the Sons of Garmadon are very weak, but honestly, taking their weapon, the masks, the generals, the troops themselves, they do alright. They do go down fairly easily, but they can overwhelm the ninja if they can. It's one of those things where they have their moments. I will defend the Sons of Garmadon. They did their bits. But number 12. Number 11, I'm going to give it to Unagami's army. I don't actually remember the 405 guards. I may have gotten that wrong. Editor's note. Did I get that wrong? But I will say they're number 11 because, again, they successfully did take over Ninjago. So it's one of those things where we're officially at the enemies or the armies that did take over Ninjago in some way, whether it was temporary, whether it was long term. They did have an advantage. They did do really well. Unagami successfully captured all the ninja. They got out into the real world. They were causing havoc. They would have won. But the thing is that in the end, of course, Jay with his dragon power-up was able to counter it. But yeah, honestly, Unagami could go a little lower. I will say that. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's one of those ones where he certainly did have his moments. And like I said, I can't deny the fact he successfully took over Ninjago. It's one of those things. But yeah, Unagami, unfortunately, just missing out on the number 10. Number 9 is going to be going to, in my opinion, what is the strongest of the serpents, and that is going to be the Vermilion. Now, I understand that we do know what the counter to the Vermilion are. I mean, of course, the Vermilion are able to be taken down by Jay and Nia's, like, their elemental ability, split them up when they do fall apart. But the thing is that apart from that, they're basically invincible. And also the Time Twins, Makia is very strong as well, a lot of other aspects that are really good. And they can also take over literally anything. So it's one of those ones where even the base form Vermilion are maybe a little weaker and they can be separated a little easier, but the thing is that the bigger ones that they create are much stronger, and the Iron Doom, I think, successfully took down the Elemental Alliance. So it's one of those ones there, the Vermilion, with everything considered, are semi-invincible with the ability to be any single weapon. So I think I can't really ignore that. So yeah, I think they are quite deserving of the number 9. But again, I would love to know if you guys agree with this or not, because again, I think this is a little more of a controversial one once again. But yeah, the Vermilion definitely have their reason to be higher, put it that way. And number 8, another one that might be a little controversial. This might be a bit high for him, but the Ghosts. And well, they did successfully take over Styx. And if it wasn't for Nia's true potential, I mean, the Preeminent would have won, straight up. Like, the Preeminent was winning. It was one of those things where it took an ocean to drown her, and I don't think the ninja would have been able to second guess that they would have been able to successfully do it. If Nia didn't do her full potential, well, they would have been dead. So one of those things where they successfully overtook. Nia was the only proper counter, and even then towards the end of the season, even Nia destroying them, they just came straight back. It was one of those ones where they were an unkillable army that was going to spread into every single realm, and they would have. So if it wasn't for Nia, they would have been destroyed. And I think, well, Season 5 just starting out, Nia was able to do that. A modern day Nia would definitely be able to do it as well. But yeah, the Ghosts are very strong, and we don't give them enough credits. But yeah, number 8. Number 7 is actually going to go to the Wolf Mask Warriors, and they're fairly competent, I will say that. They're very good at what they do, especially when they get powered up by the gong. But again, it's one of those ones where the generals really did have it. I mean, Jordana was fairly powerful, Raz is powerful, Cinder's quite powerful as well. One of those ones where, in bulk, definitely were giving the ninja a run for their money, especially when Noct was a part of that army as well. It was one of those ones where, again, everything put together made a very strong army. And, well, yeah, I can't really counter that. That's the issue. So, yeah, the Wolf Mask Warriors, they're very strong, know exactly what they're doing. A shame Season 2 Part 2 didn't do too much with them, but that additional upgrade they got again at the end of Season 2 Part 2 was crazy, which shows that we haven't even seen them at full strength. So, yeah, the Wolf Mask Warriors definitely deserve their spot. Number 6 is going to be going to the Imperium Army, and that mostly comes down to the fact that they have a lot of technology behind them. This is in similar vein to whoever's just above it, just put it that way. Imperium just had a lot of really good tech. They had those proto cubes, I believe they were, where they were making animals out of them. They had dragons on their side. They had all this amazing technology. They had all these, well, the dragons weren't on their side, but you know what I mean. But they had all this amazing technology. It was one of those things where they just had so many different aspects about them that did overwhelm the ninja to an extent. And I think they still would if they knew exactly how to use it. But yeah, some decent generals as well. I mean, when Raz was a part of it, Rapton was honestly alright, all things considered. A lot of different aspects that made Imperium very powerful, and the reason why it probably would go at the number 6, because I think they would be able to take down anything that was put at them, especially considering it was the army for a realm. But yes, number 6, Imperium. But this brings us officially to our 5, and I think you guys may question one of them in particular, put it that way. Number 5 goes to the Ninjroids. And that's mostly down to, again, to the fact that they have a lot of technology behind them, but the Ninjroids simply did it better. They had robotic dragons, they had vehicles, they had tanks, they had everything. They had a really strong army. In bulk, they did really well. Even when the ninja got their elemental powers in Season 3, they very much gave the ninja a run for their money. And then obviously having Pythor, Tech Wu, Cryptor, having the Overlord, a lot of different aspects that made a very, very strong army, and one that very much did hold up in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, one of those ones where if the ninja weren't careful, they most definitely would have lost. And they're definitely deserving of the number 5. Number 4, though, is where you're gonna question me. And it's the Anaconda cultist, Chen's army. And again, hear me out, because I'm not even considering it with Chen with the Staff of Elements. The thing is that Klaus, the Master of the Dark Arts, had plenty of magic behind him, did plenty of amazing things. Chen is ruthless. Chen is a very ruthless guy. And then you will go, oh, well, the army's not too strong. And again, in numbers, they did well. But here's the thing. When they were Anaconda, they would have taken over Ninjago. They were winning. It wasn't for Garmadon sacrificing himself that they didn't actually get their realm taken over. So it's one of those things where if it wasn't for Garmadon, the cultists would have won. The Anaconda cultists would have very easily have won, and Chen would have ruled over Ninjago. It's one of those things where they had the appropriate power up, and using that, they became very strong, and the ninja weren't able to handle it, simply put. So yeah, the cultists are very deserving of the number 4 spot. I will defend this till the day I die. But they didn't get the top 3. Getting the bronze medal is going to be the Crystal Army, and that's mostly down to the fact that they made a Venge Zone, which of course the ninja were weak to, and also it did require extra support to be able to actually destroy them. Of course, later in the season, anyone was able to destroy them, but overall, the ninja did require additional help to be able to destroy them. And the thing is, you had the Crystal Council behind them, you had the Overlord, you had all those different little variants, the Dragonites, I believe they're called, the Flyers. They had them. They had every single advantage to them, and it was one of those things where they very easily could have and did overwhelm the ninja. So it's one of those things where they're very deserving of the bronze spot. They would have killed the ninja if they weren't careful, and well, Overlord created them that way for a reason, put it that way. So yeah, number 3. But number 2 does go to the Oni, and that is mostly because, well, they're the original enemy. They're the original threat. It did, of course, take a tornado of creation to destroy them, and that's why they're not the number 1. But it's one of those things where the Oni could very easily destroy any army that is below, and they have a lot going for them. All their soldiers are competent. The Oni masks originated from the Oni. They were Oni warlords at one point. So with all those little aspects considered, it definitely did lead to an army that was very fierce. And again, they took over Ninjago. Didn't they take over every single realm? It was one of those things where they comfortably took over every realm. That mist that froze people solid. I mean, it could have destroyed anyone. The only person it wouldn't have destroyed was Lloyd, Garmadon, or Wu. So it's one of those things where, leaving 3 of them left, they wouldn't have been able to take over the Oni army. So it's one of those things where they would have won. They really would have won. I'm surprised they didn't, but of course they couldn't. But yeah, the Oni number 2. There are ones that beat them out though. And that of course is the Stone Army. And what else can I say about the fact that they are basically indestructible? That it's one of those things. Lloyd no longer has golden power. If Lloyd had golden power, it would be a very different list. But the thing is that, of course, the ninja's elemental powers are able to stop them, but never actually destroy them. There's no actual way to destroy them apart from golden power. And it's one of those things where, in that situation, well, that's it. You know, Garmadon at the helm, the Overlord at the helm as well. The Kozu was very strong, the Giant Stone Warrior, all the different vehicles, their weapons, absolutely everything put together they're the criteria. They have everything. And it's one of those things where they very easily would have destroyed the ninja. And, well, there's no counter really. The ninja could slow them down, but they could never truly destroy them because of no golden power. And that is why they take number 1. But that is my list. That is the 21 armies all listed out. And let me know what you guys think of it. But yeah, I do believe the Stone Army are the most strongest army of all of them. I think the Oni very much could have been number one. They were number one when I initially did this list, but unfortunately, I just think the Stone Army ultimately wouldn't have been stopped, whereas the Oni could have been stopped quicker than them. But yeah, those are the strongest, and yeah, I do believe the weakest are the Thugs, the Ice Warriors, and the Pyro Vipers, just simply down to the fact that they took the least to destroy. But yeah, that is about it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care. Okay,